This Week in 40K.
Good morning for those of you that's relevant for. I am Colin and he's Billy, and we are back for This Week in 40K. Billy, here's what I have to say to you this morning. Oh,
Please.
What a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got the funniest feeling. Everything's going our way. That's the most positive I can be this morning.
That's quite positive.
It's true, and I'm sure you don't know what I'm referencing.
What? It's the Song of the South, isn't it?
Nope. Nope, it's
isn't
not.
Where's that from? It's from the
Oklahoma
Disney movie Song of the South, isn't it?
No, it's from Oklahoma.
Oh, right. Oh, right, yeah.
Not from a racist Disney movie, in fact. All
yeah,
right.
No, which one? What's the famous song from that one?
From the racist movie? I don't know. We're going to move on. Song of the South is the one that...
Oklahoma.
Okay, that's great. Okay, now that I've made reference to a 90-year-old musical, hi, everybody. Welcome to the show that's neither grim nor dark, about the grimdark. Billy's got his... Oh, Billy, we're only getting some of your frames. Just as a heads up there. Not all of your frames.
I'm getting all of my frames. I'm getting all of your frames.
Okay, great. How you doing, Billy?
Per that start to the show, I'm in a bit of a brain fog for like the past week. I don't know.
Oh,
just life is good and fine. Zippity doo dah. That's the song. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I'm just sort of been a bit fuzzy, but life is going well. Work is good. Life is good. I've gotten some 40K in, and I actually feel relatively knowledgeable about what's happening. But the more relevant question is, Colin, how are things with you?
I'm really good. I hadn't been to a tournament in a long time, probably 6 months, which is for me a really long time. When I'm at full Colin pace, I go to about 1 2-day tournament a month. That's my typical pace. So I took about 6 months off for family reasons, and I was back at it this weekend. And yeah, we'll talk about it. But basically, through a miraculous set of circumstances, Hank and I tied for the. I mean, when I say we tied, I do not mean that we were both undefeated. We were. Not only were we both undefeated, we had the same number of battle points. We tied. Hank has a slightly better strength of schedule. Great to Hank. Happy to let him win. I'll happily take second place. But when I looked at it, I realized that strength of schedule is actually not a good tiebreaker.
No.
So because the early opponents I played lost all of their games. That's actually not my fault. So anyways, it's totally fine. I'm happy to take second place. The tying with my good friend and practice partner was pretty hysterical. So I'm down. It was great. So yeah.
You are stepping on our top story though.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Moving on. Top story. Here we go.
Our top story.
What's our top story, Billy?
Our top story is Colin ties for first in a GT with Hank. Woo! Yeah. You know, it was a banner weekend for Best in Tabletop. The two main content creators who went to an event both went undefeated and both finished in first place. So now continue.
Yeah, and here's the best part of that. And I want to be clear that when I tell this story, it is just to be funny. I could have found an extra point at any of my other games. I made banners mistakes even in my final game that would have gotten me the points to do this. But basically, Hank finished his final game. So I went into day 2 with a battle points lead, and then Hank played 2 Chaos Knight players with guard. And that is really a bad time for the Chaos Knights players. And so he 100'd both of them, and that shot him up in points. So Hank had been done for a long time. I'm playing my opponent in round 5, and my opponent and I do the math at bottom of 5, and we realize that I need to desperately find 1 point. We do the math. I'm going to tie with Hank. I need to find 1 more point that I have found. And we realize that with Oath of Moment, so the only model my opponent has left on the table is Bobby G. And we realize that In order to get the last point, I have to kill Bobby G, and he has to not get back up.
Okay.
I put a phenomenal amount of shooting into him. I shot him with a Vengeance Landspeeder. I shot him with some Infiltrators. I shot him with a Talon Master, 2 crack missiles from the Terminators, 2 attack bikes at close range. Like, I shot the dude. Made all of his 3-up invuls. Then I charged into the dude. Made all of his 3-up invuls, and the game ended. But what was fun about that is he made like 23 3-up invuls, and Hank got a chance to come to the table and watch the die rolls. So the tournament was being decided with Hank and I sitting there as I tried to kill Bobby G. What a wonderful, wonderful story that was, and how great that was. And the reality is I did banners wrong and deployed my army wrong in that game. So I easily could have gotten the points if I had played better, but it was more fun to say that it came down to Bobby G not dying. Especially funny because Hank himself is a huge Bobby G fan. And so he said, Bob is not going to let me down.
That's
and
funny.
I think that's great. So that's Robert Gulemin, by the way, if anybody doesn't know who I mean by Bobby G. I hate saying his actual name. It's spelled weird. It's hard to say. I like Bobby G. That's what I call him. I called him Bob a few times when I was feeling formal during the game, though.
Robert? Ever Robert?
Yeah, Robert G. Anyways, it was a great deal of fun. If you are really interested, we're going to talk about the tournament here in a minute. If you're really interested in a deep dive on my list and Chuck's list and Hank's list, on Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific, we'll be doing Best in Faction, the OG podcast that started all this crazy roller coaster that we're all on. And if you guys have never listened to that show, we are called the Show Your Work podcast. So we are all going to talk about how we built our lists and why they're the way they are and what we were considering and how we're going to change them and what we thought about in our games and what we thought. Like, it's going to be an in-depth analysis of the tournament. So if that's what you're into, you can find us live at 9 a.m. Pacific on Sunday, or you can find us on the podcasts, just like you can find this, just like you can find Frontiers, just like you can find Best in Faction, the Next Generation, and of course our new show, Better Human, Better Gamer, which I flipping adore doing. So if you want to see Colin really get into something, my words fly. I really go on that podcast. It's very fun for me. All right. Is that our top story?
That was our top story. It's a good story. It's a fun story. It's a story everyone should know about.
It is a fun story. It really is. Wait till you guys hear what I played in the final round. Here we go.
Oh.
What's new?
What's new, Pussycat?
Biggest new thing is the Agatus Strike Force, I believe is how we refer to it. Agastus, Agastus. So some new Primaris miniatures have dropped. They are the Primaris Devastators. They're finally showing up. They have some funky rocket launchers that have some very interesting and points agnostic statistics on them. The thing to be aware of, other than that there is a wildly well, if I am considered part of the community, I think there's wildly disparate opinions about the miniatures, because I think the miniatures are sweet and everyone else thinks they're really silly. But the actual stats on the guns look quite solid. You have D3 plus 3 damage on marine shooting, which is not something they've had before. There's indirect built in. They're good numbers. The points are going to have a lot to say about that, because if you've been building marine lists recently, anything over like 120 points seems really expensive for a unit. And so, yeah, I'm spoiled on that front. But those came out.
I don't know. I have two different 300-point units in the list I just took to the tournament.
Terminators and the Black Knights.
Black Knights.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. If you have something along the lines of Deathwing Terminators or Black Knights, you can spend 300 points.
Or Terminators from someone else's army. But I'm with you.
Sure, but like most of your other stuff, you can get an obscene amount of value.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about in some lists, for like 115 points. So just really waiting to see how these guys are pointed. Also the fact that these are the first missile launchers that lock you in at list creation to being either crag or frag or crack missiles. You can't shoot one turn, one the other turn. You're either shooting the frag or the crack. Now they have that indirect underneath to sort of balance against it, especially if you go crack, which I think you might end up doing, but be aware of that.
What are the crack stats?
The crack stats are strength 8, AP 3, D3 plus 3 damage.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually good.
Yeah.
I'm wildly unimpressed by the frag stats.
D3 plus 3 shots at 411 is, if you're always
sorry, I fell asleep.
If you're always at AP2 and they're blast.
No. The last thing Marines need is bulk fire.
That's fair.
Like they have plenty of options for bulk fire.
If the super frag ignored line of sight, that would start to become very interesting. Now their undercarriage piece is D3 411 ignore line of sight blast, and the sergeant's is a D6 612. So the sergeant actually is like on his own a decent indirect fire platform, and you throw in some cracks along with that, you have yourself a bit of a stew going. We'll see with points, but there are certainly chapters who will take a look at this unit and make an evaluation. It's not dead on arrival. I would guess we'll probably see at least the GW spoiler of what the close combat dreadnought's going to be probably today, tomorrow, based on how they're rolling stuff out. So pay attention to that.
By the way, the guns they have are literally from the Fifth Element.
The ZF-1?
Yeah. I think they look silly. I'm in the silly category.
Like I said,
I think their guns are half their size, which is fine. Yeah. But like the dude that's holding it in the air is so ridiculous. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, like I said, I'm fine being on my own thinking they look cool.
Okay.
The other just thing to know about is there are a whole bunch of boarding party box sets. These are just various armies, relatively good stuff units all packaged together. There's stuff for Genestealer Cult, Death Guard, Demons, AdMech. Pretty sure I've seen the Eldar. The Agastus is the Marines one are. Take a look at GW. These almost all of their box sets tend to be decent savings, assuming you want all the minis. And even if you don't want all the minis, take a look.
It's usually that you get a full box free.
Yeah.
If there's 3 different kits in the box, you're paying for 2 to get 3. Is usually how the GW math works.
Yeah. And add on top of that your friendly local game store discount, and you can start to it can start to be a very reasonable way to put stuff together. And like, for example, the Demons one is a bunch of corn dogs and bloodletters. And spoiler, that's a thing that we will talk some more about. So, that's the main bit of news. Other than, the happy results for members of this podcast.
Oh, really? Did you have your baby?
No, but everything is largely going well there. Feeling kicks, and that's fun. And at this stage, we're 2 months out from the earliest our due date has been pointed to us. So I'm going to be a dad soon, and that is a very weird sentence for me to say out loud.
Okay. Well, statistics aside, the old wives' tale is that first kids come late. Who cares what the data says? That's just the old wives' tale.
Yes. Also, the old wives' tale is that my daughter is going to be very hairy because my wife has been nauseous. There are a lot of very odd old wives' tales.
That's great. I like the number of things that pregnant women can't eat now that I promise our parents ate.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my mom did quit smoking, but the rest of it, no. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. What is winning, I wonder? Let's find out.
What's winning?
Me. Woo! Raise the roof. Okay. I'm not actually a what, as it happens.
We would prefer that.
So, I think the meta is beginning to shake out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fun. I went into the tournament this weekend. So when I prep for a tournament, I take my list and I make a list of the things that I think are the best lists in the game. And then I think through my list into each of those lists so that I make sure that I have a reasonable game plan so that I don't get to the table and I'm like, oh, I didn't consider that I'd have to play guard. Like, excuse me. So as I went through it, I realized as I went through it, I thought, I think the S tier, Like, so my definition of S tier, just so everybody knows, is if you take this army in an equally skilled contest, you have a decent chance to win regardless of opponent or mission or who goes first. That's S tier. What that means is you don't have an obvious weakness. If a list has an obvious counter that it can't play through, it can't be S tier. Okay? So going into the weekend, I was thinking that the S tier might be limited to just Guard and Dark Angels. Because it's not Tau, it's not Orcs, it's not like there's lots of other things that just lose the Guard in particular and certainly don't want to deal with Dark Angels. And so you can kind of begin to see how that shakes out. Now, here's what I forgot. Demons are awesome. And Chuck played Demons all weekend. And the whole time I'm talking to him, I'm thinking about our practice games and the learnings he's making. Chuck went 3-2 while thinking that 700 points in his list was wrong. So he's going to change that 700 points, and it's going to be better. And then we look at the results for the weekend, and Demons did very well. So thinking it through, the non-adjustable invols against shooting armies, the wound-gated thirster, flamers are still great. It doesn't matter that they got nerfed; they're amazing still. People like corn dogs, skull cannons are really undercosted for what they do.
Yeah, take a look at that data sheet for everyone who's just looked at them in lists and been like, well, these have never been good. Why are they in there? Just look at the data sheet and compare it to a Dreadnought.
Yeah, and what's funny about it is I asked Chuck, I'm like, well, how do they shoot? And he's like, no. They're just going to run at you so they can punch you. Like, what?
Yeah, but their gun is also just objectively a good stat line.
What's their gun?
It's like D3 plus 3822.
Oh, well, that's good.
I'll double check that, but I had this exact same conversation with my practice partner, and we just stopped and actually looked at the data sheet and okay, I now understand why people are taking these.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've
D3, heavy D3 plus 3, strength 8, AP 2 damage, blast, ignore, cover.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
On a BS3 platform.
For 90 points.
Along with legit decent melee and demonic 4+ saves on both combat and shooting.
90 points.
That's a good Dreadnought.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so I think I underestimated Demons. Other than that, from this weekend, I don't think I saw anything that was surprising. Orcs also are doing pretty well in the meta, but Orcs aren't S tier because Orcs can just end up at a table and look at their opponent and say, "Aw, damn." Like there are just armies that Orcs don't want to deal with, and if you're thinking I'm being unfair, that's literally what Lucas said yesterday, and he's one of the most knowledgeable Orc players there is. So so Orcs in kind of a weird spot there. Chaos Knights look really popular. I think that Chaos Knights are in a similar boat to many other armies, and they can't handle. Basically, what's happened is we have really aggressive gun lines, and they're aggressive at a level that we aren't used to, and so. There are just armies that don't know how to deal with that. Sadly, Votann is really badly off. I played Votann with Ravenwing and Dark Angels, and my opponent's list was not tuned to what the meta says is the right list. But even then, Votann just don't have enough things to put up with the firepower from Guard or Dark Angels. So if you're going to be S tier right now, you're going to have to deal with either hiding or speed. You're going to have a way to deal with those gun lines. What's interesting about that is I want everyone to remember that when you pick an army to go to a tournament, the vast majority of people are not going to win that tournament. Like the people that are going to win the tournament, usually you know who they are in the room. So like, I want you to remember that when I tell you what S tier is, I'm not saying don't play other things. Okay. I played a Sisters player and I was blown away at how good Sisters were against me, just as an example. By the way, Alex Pina, amazing Sisters player. I'll give him a shout out. So I played against Space Wolf list that was 4-0 going into the final table. Like you can play stuff and you can win with it. I'm talking when I say S tier, I'm talking about the highest of competitive. Me against someone that is the same skill as me trying to win a tournament. That's what I'm looking at. Play the thing you love. That's the summary there. Anything you'd add before we talk about tournaments, Mr. Billy?
The only thing I want to emphasize in there is I think so many people's enjoyment of the game would go up if they calibrated their 40K experience against their realistic outcomes. Tried to push those realistic outcomes up one notch, But like, I know going to an event, 3-2 is good, 4-1 is great. 5-0 is just probably not realistic given the time I have to dedicate to the hobby right now. And I filter all of my analysis through. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what I would say.
And the reality is, if you learn a thing, and I mean, lists are important, but player skill is more than 50% of the equation.
Yeah.
Because like you can play people with the S tier list and be like, oh, you don't know what you're doing.
Well, and that's the other thing. None of these lists are so overtuned that they just beat their opponent on
That's
their
right. That's right. And so one thing to consider is playing the thing that you love and repping it over and over and over again is great because you will go 4-1 at that GT. And the reality is one day you'll go 5-0.
Yeah.
Because even if you're playing orcs and you know you can't deal with X, you might just not play X.
Right.
I was worried about my matchup into Hank, and we just didn't play each other.
Yeah.
That's just a thing that can happen. Like we got first and second at the tournament and we didn't have to play each other. We would have if it had gone to 6 rounds, but local tournaments usually don't do 6 rounds. So there you go.
And spoiler, you guys might be playing a game that will in some way be content for this channel.
Yeah, we're trying to schedule a stream game where we can decide who won. That will be fun. I will tell you guys that both Hank and I think that the where the game is at, that matchup comes down to who goes first. And those of you that know me well know that I hate that sentence. I never agree with that sentence. People tell me all the time the game's just a die roll. Whoever goes first is what matters. That's almost never true in my experience. This is a matchup where because he has redeploy and because I have pregame move, this is a matchup where I probably can't hide from him unless the terrain and mission are both very in my favor. And he definitely can't hide from me, and we hit each other incredibly hard.
Okay.
So that matchup, we will do it as a stream game, and maybe we'll end up being wrong. But Hank and my perception for both of us is, unless terrain is really in my favor, we can't survive going second enough.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be wrong. That's just I haven't done that matchup. I've played Ravenwing into old guard tanks. And I won that matchup, but I won it by 2 points.
Yeah.
So, and I think I went first. Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about tournaments. Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. We're going to start with the tournament I went to. Normally we do this in order. It's the third biggest event of the weekend, but you know what? No, let's go in the other order so that I have, that's fine. We'll stay with this. Okay. The pecking order, Peeps of War GT, was in Olympia, Washington. That's the capital of Washington, for those that are wondering. 50 players, 5 rounds. This is a group that started doing GTs relatively recently, and they have this hotel that's inexpensive. The restaurant in the hotel is expensive but really tasty. There was lots of room for tables. They're gonna up their capacity to 80. So this is gonna start being a bigger thing in our meta. So it was won by the lovely and talented Hank Adams. Hank has been speccing guard for an incredibly long time. Since the book came out, we've been talking, I wouldn't say daily, but often about guard lists. He's been testing them and testing them and testing them, and he's made the thing that he thinks is the best. He's going to tweak it some for the next tournament, but in general, he's on the right path. He's actually running 2 Dorns. Dorns are amazing. They are very, very, very shooty. They can get really silly buffs. They're T9 with a 2-up. T9 is a huge deal in the meta right now. Lots of the things that are going to shoot at you are strength 8, which don't like shooting at T9. Anytime you're rooting on 5s, RNG can just tell you no and go home. That's really what the problem is. So he's got the 2 Dorns. One of them, he has the always cover thing on, so that when you're shooting it from even remotely far away, it has an extra armor save. I think that's smart and great. And then the other one ends up with a 5-up invul. Now the reason why Hank is taking double Dorn over Russ's. Okay, my dog is literally going to go through the door. I will be right back, real quick, Billy.
For sure. And I'm just going to spoil part of this conversation. That when we get to the 5th place list and who Colin played in the finals, there's a piece of tech in there that I think we're going to see more of. More of this after the break.
He did not accept that the door was closed, and he's
Fair enough.
110 pounds, and I was worried that the door was just going to come off its hinges.
I'm well aware of pets that want to get through doors.
Yes. He was really being a pig-headed dog. Huh?
That's
See?
right. Yeah, I see what you did there.
Okay, so here's the thing. Hank plays with the redeploy warlord trait. So the problem with guard is that if you go second, it can be hard to hide your tanks.
Right.
People are taking like 6 or 7 Russes. That's impossible to hide. You will never hide that. And you'll go second and you'll lose tanks for no reason other than you went second. That's not actually that good, especially not good in the mirror. And Hank is very, 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 very heavily planning for the mirror because we both think that guard is S tier. I know their win percentage isn't high yet. Just give it a minute. We started seeing them this weekend. Just give it a flipping minute.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a lot of guard lists.
Space. What's that?
I'm going to talk about a lot of guard lists.
Yeah, the reality is that we've known that they're broken beyond all recognition for a while now. But the full model line wasn't out, so they weren't at tournaments. The full model line's out now, and oh dear God. Okay, so Hank's got the 2 Dorns. He can redeploy them to hide them from you, or redeploy them to the line and drive them forward. Hey, guess what? A tank that goes whatever it is, 10 or 12 on the first turn off the deployment line is going to see a lot of your army. So he does that, and then he's got the command, the banner of bullshit, excuse my language, but that's the appropriate term for it. He's got 2 units of mortars. By the way, the new mortar base is hysterically small. I can't even get over it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they shrunk it. It's 50s now. And it was 60s before, and the way geometry works is it's like 37% smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It looks silly how small they are. Like, I'm legitimately worried about fitting my metal Valhalla mortars onto the tiny base.
Okay.
Anyways, smaller bases. And then he's got the 1 unit of Corsicans. Hank doesn't like the 2 units, even though they're 100 points, because he doesn't think that in most matchups people will come close enough to him to use them. I think that says a lot about how powerful guard is if people can't get near you. But the big thing that Hank is doing is double 5 Bulgrin. And the idea behind that is, while people are trying to kill your tanks, they can't also kill Bulgrin. Bulgrin can go stand on an objective to get him points. They can counterpunch something that gets too close. Something that runs in to do damage to the tanks, they often can clear. They're actually really good tech, and I like it a lot. He also has the Bulgrin bodyguard in the command squad. That's really cool because that bodyguard can die first, and then you can bring him back with a stratagem. And he's like 5 wounds with a 2-up, 4-up or something insane. So it makes that command squad incredibly durable. It also means that it can like go into like close combat if someone gets close to you. So it's real weird. Anyways, that's the majority of his guard list. Obviously, there's a little bit of other stuff in there. But it scores points like a mad fiend. It blows the crap out of people. His hardest game of the event was against our area's best Tau player, Donald. And it was just Donald Plummer. And it was just, they played an incredible game. They hit each other hard early. Long Strike took out a door in a turn, which he's not supposed to do, but it's what he did. That's not math, but it happened anyways. And then on turn 3, Hank nearly got tabled. Hank went down to only a small number of models, which he was able to maneuver around carefully and play the mission really hard to win by a couple points. So that's a game that I wish had been recorded. Hank said it's the best game of 40K he's played since January of 2022, over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that was neat. Next up is a Dark Angels list. It's not particularly interesting. The player just really brought the... No, I'm kidding. I'm next with my Dark Angels list. I played all Ravenwing in all of my testing. Looking at all Ravenwing, I was playing double 10s of Black Knights, 9 attack bikes, 2 Talon Masters, Samael, and 3 Vengeance Speeders. I think it was roughly that. That might be wrong on points. Oh, and 5 Infiltrators. That's what I've been testing. And then I thought a lot about the guard matchup. And I thought a lot about other gun lines like Tau. And I realized that I really wasn't set up correctly. So I took out 10 Black Knights and I took out an attack bike. I think that's what I took out. Oh, and I took out Samael. And I added Azrael. And I added 10 Death Knight Terminators and the Blade Guard banner. So I have 2 Vengeance Speeders. I have 3 3 and 2 of attack bikes. I have 10 Black Knights. I have 10 Deathwing Terminators. I have the Blade Guard Banner Ancient, who is upgraded to all the fancy. We'll talk about him in a second because he's hilarious. So Blade Guard Banner, and yes, I'm spending more time on this because I know a lot about it. Banner Bearer, Apothecary, Azrael, 2 Talon Masters. Here's the thing about Azzy. He is just better than Samael. Samael's only benefit is that he's fast. He's okay in combat, but that's not super important to the army. He's fast, okay? For nearly the same points, Azrael gives you more command points, and he gives you an aura of 4-up invul on all bikes and infantry. That means that if I hide on my side of the board with Azrael and the Apothecary standing in the middle, and people move to extreme angles to shoot at me, they've now exposed themselves to a heavy counterpunch, and I'm going to have a 4-up invul, and I'm going to have a 6-up feel no pain, okay? I think that's mandatory. You have to be able to go second no matter what the terrain is, okay? The Deathwing Terminators that end up being transhuman and -1 damage with a 1-up save that goes to a 0-up save and cover, they are a mathematical issue for Guard. Mm-hmm. Guard has a very difficult time dealing with that. And like, for example, Hank's Counterpunch Bulgrin just bounce. They kill like 5 of them kill like a Terminator maybe. So that was the idea of the army. Basically, the Deathwing Terminators start in the middle, and just move forward because people cannot kill them. They're so hard to kill, and you can't shoot at them because you have to kill the Black Knights, and then you have to kill the attack bikes. Like, that's the order of operation against the Dark Angels army. Because those Black Knights, I'm going to zip them across the table at you. They're going to shoot the absolute ever-loving crap out of something. And then they might even charge another thing and beat the crap out of that. Mm-hmm. And so my opponents start their turn, and they've got these 10 Black Knights spread out on their side of the table, maybe on objectives, maybe wrapped in combat around something. They have to deal with that. Those Black Knights are so punchy and so shooty and so fast that there's no option. So they have to deal with that first, and then you've got these Terminators and all these attack bikes and all these everything else is coming at them. Just an incredibly fun list. It plays exactly the way that I want to play. It's got a heavy hammer unit that is difficult to kill that's moving towards you. It's got incredible amounts of speed that allows me to do really neat tricks and hide and weave in and out of terrain. I'm really good at seeing angles. Like if I go here, I can shoot this thing, but I'm only going to get reprised from these things. That's a very easy thing for me to see. And that plays very well into the list. So if you'd like to hear more about this list, please join me on Best in Faction at 9 o'clock or live on whatever it is, Sunday, and we'll go into it in a lot more detail. I played the first 3 days. I played Dark Angel's Mirror against a hobbyist who's been playing the game forever. He was 68 years old, and he'd been playing since 95. Wonderful. Second opponent was third opponent was a Guard player playing a great list, somewhat new to the game, and I absolutely helped him, and we tried to help him learn some stuff, and he had a great time. He's in the chat right now. Shout out to Brooke, who was a fantastic opponent. I honestly can't remember what I played second. And then fourth, I played Sisters against an amazing Sisters player, and fifth, I played against the 5th place person, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's so weird that I can't remember.
I'll tell you in a second.
Okay. I'm sorry, opponent.
You were wonderful.
So third place was Torin, and Torin rocked some orcs. And the thing is, like I was saying, orcs are just good. He has got Goths, which is what you'll see. It's got Boss Zegstruck. He's got a Warboss in Mega Armor, a Warboss on Warbike, a Weird Boy, 3x10 Gretchen, 3x10 Commandos, a unit of Mega Knobs, 2 big units of Knobs, 2 units of Big Storm Boys, and 2 Battle Wagons and a truck. This is a great list. Storm Boys starting in a vehicle makes them so fast on the first turn. Commandos can literally fill the board, and if you go first, they can rush in and just wrap up your opponent in their deployment zone. Orcs score victory points pretty darn well. The only reason why this isn't better than A tier or whatever is that there are people that are just like, oh, I went first, and I have all of these bullets. And orcs do not like that. Yeah. So good job, Torin, on third place. Fourth place was Jason Ryder from the U.S. Army Esports. He's a longtime member of our community. He had a Black Legion list with Abaddon. He was rocking the 2 10s of bikes that you can buff the hell out of. His opponents talked to me a lot about how strong they thought that was. running those bikes up and just shooting a million times at AP2 with rerolls on everything. Like, it was real good. He took the Greater Scorpion or whatever it's called as kind of a heavy thing you've got to go through. Really interesting list. Good job to Jason. His one loss was to his friend, Linton Rowan, who was playing Space Wolves, who was my final opponent at top table. Linton brought, I'm not kidding, Servitors, Bobby G, Librarian, Tech Marine, 30 Wolfen, 3 Wolves, Astraeus list. It was so damn neat. Bobby G is incredible in that army. He makes it so that the Wolfen are +2 to advance, +2 to charge, and they reroll charges. That's cool. You can bring them in from deep strike and charge them. They can terrain hop and get in close to people. The Astraeus is a massive, difficult thing for a lot of armies to deal with. Shoots like crazy. So big that it can touch multiple ruins at the same time and see through all of them. It was not particularly good against me. I rolled really well on AP4 3 damage shooting. Sorry, Astraeus. But that list was really neat. I think if we asked Linton, he would say that the Astraeus was wrong. It is 560 points. There are better things to take in that spot. But basically, the idea is 30 Wolfen and good shooting that you have to pay attention to. Great direction for Space Wolves. Absolutely love it. I do want to give a special shout out to JT Steiger from Aegis Games, who got 6th place with Votan. This was his first tournament with Votan. JT is one of the best humans that exists. Aegis is one of the best stores that exists. This made me really happy to see. This is one of JT's better finishes in his career. Really, really pleased with that. And that is the pecking order. Let's move on.
Two notes on that. One, your second round was against Colby Fouché with Votan. You had mentioned your Votan opponent. That's who you played.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And Colby was great, and he was learning a lot as well. He basically hit me and went with a lot of stuff and went, oh, I killed 3 Terminators. And then I hit him and killed 3x3 bikes, a whole bunch of his Terminators, the big tank. Like, that was a bloodbath. Okay.
And really quick, the other thing, just so that people realize, the reason the Wolfen are advancing and charging with +2 is the combination of Bobby G and Hungry for Battle Successor. Not a lot of people are taking that. This is an interesting thing. People pay attention to this. Try it.
Yep, I agree. And the other thing about the Wolfen that's really interesting is that their wording actually says that when they attack, the whole army counts as being an assault doctrine.
Right.
And the reason that that's significant is that means that if you take Codex Warfare, your heavy weapons can get points and the Wolfen can get points in the same turn. And I believe that's the only army that can do that.
Yeah, you can stay in Dev Doctrine the whole game,
yes.
And most of your melee stuff can be in Assault Doctrine at the same time.
That's right.
This is a thing that Space Wolves can do. There's space to explore. Keep going. Because we're running
melee at Shiloh, Springdale, Arkansas. 57 players and 5 rounds. Won by Brent Simon from the Hogs of War. Brent was rocking some demons. Like we talked about, these are real good. Be'lakor, I will say that Chuck's view of Be'lakor this weekend is that the Bloodthirster is just better. Then he's got Fate Skimmer, Fluxmaster. I don't know what's better. I'm just telling you what Chuck said. 3x1 Exalted Flamers, 5-4-4 of Flamers, 6 Screamers, and 3 Burning Chariots. Demons, real darn good. This is a relatively fast army that shoots well, it punches well, it psychics well, it character screens. It does things. So great to see that. Second place was the longtime member of the 40K community, Brad Chester, playing Salamanders. And he had a Chapter Master and then Volcan He-Stan, 2 units of 5 Infiltrators. By the way, I took 5, and I will never take only 5. I'll take 10 to every tournament until 9th edition is done. Aggressor squad of 3 aggressors, a Primaris Apothecary, a unit of Van Vets. I've been very surprised that I've been seeing Van Vets. People are just playing them, saying to hell with the points, I'm going.
Well, how is he equipping them? Because there's a huge spread in Van Vets.
He's got 2 that are Power Sword Storm Shield, 2 that are Astartes Chainsword. Well, one's Power... This is confusing. 2 Chainsword Power Fist, 1 Chainsword Power Sword, 2 Power Sword Storm Shield. 135 points.
Right. So the only thing you're paying for there are the Storm Shields and the Power Fists. All your other power weapons and almost all your guns are free.
Right.
So you can do a Van Vet squad for as cheap as 115 points with jetpacks, and then you can go up to like 180 if you want to. but there's a
Right.
big spread.
3x3 multi-melta attack bikes, 3 land speeder tornadoes. We talked about them last week. They're crazy good. 2x5 Devastator Marines with combi meltas, thunder hammers on the leader, and then 4 last cannons each, and then a unit of eradicators. So this is a salamanders list that shoots you extremely hard and skirmishes with the Vanguard vets. Not hard to figure out what that list is doing. Next up, we have Gene Stealer Cult. Yeah. Guess what else might be S tier? We don't know yet. They sure might be, though. I'm not sure what their bad matchup is. Maybe demons. Hard to say. Peyton Priest got third place. This is a fairly standard list. It's got the Feel No Pain. It's got the no penalty on heavy weapons. Like, it's got the stuff. Killer Morph, Nexus, Sanctus, Acolyte, Eichenward, Magus, Primus. Acolytes, 20 Neos, 20 Neos, 20 Neos, 10 Neos, 10 Neos, 10 Pure Strains, 10 bikes, 10 bikes, 10 bikes. This is the meta list, everybody. Get ready for this. 3x10 bikes, 3x20 Neos, maybe 4x20 Neos, maybe 5x20 Neos. Neos shoot like crazy. They take up a lot of board. They're obsec. They have all types of deep strike shenanigans. The bikes are obnoxiously hard to kill, incredibly fast, can tie up your army, and the Gene Stealers are always fun. I think Tyler Bortell's actually dropped the Gene Stealers at this point, but
Really interesting.
Quite good. Fourth place is Howard Watts. Howard. I can't always read. And he rocks some Ultramarines. I think Ultramarines are quite good right now. Any Marine army that likes to stay in the Dev Doctrine is probably pretty good right now.
Mm-hmm. He's
got Tiggy. I'm a big Tiggy fan. Tech Marine, Infiltrator, 2 units of Aggressors, 6 and 3. Invictor, Redemptor, Hammer Strike, 3 Eliminators by 3, and then Rob the G. Great list. Super efficient shooting. No librarian. Oh, no, there's a librarian with Psychic Fortress. That's great because it allows you to get an invul on your Redemptors, which is a huge deal. Hammer Strikes are really, really good for their points. This is just a list of efficient shooting that Bobby G is chilling with. And I think he's great. I think he belongs in Marine lists that are not Dark Angels. All right. Next up, we've got Renegades Open, which is a 53-player event in Cardiff, Wales, run by Liam Calaboot. And Liam was rocking. Oh my God, it's more Chaos Demons. Bellacore, Changecaster, Scarbrand, Transweaver, Demonets, Nurglings, Exalted Flamer, Fiends, Flamers, Screamers. Hey, look, it's all the same things as everybody else in different quantities. Yay, demons! Demons are great. I'm being silly because they only have a certain number of data sheets that are good, and people are just taking those. I'm surprised that that's 2 lists with Screamers. Chuck took Screamers this weekend and said they were absolute trash. So the 2 demon lists that did extremely well this weekend are both running them. So that's interesting to say the least. Second place.
Screamers are a thing you have to build into your list intentionally. There are some buffs you can put on them that make them be an actual semi-viable piece. Okay. But it can't just be and Screamers. They have to be part of a cohesive whole.
Felt fair. I have to sprint through these last few so that you have time. Tyranids got third place. 3-0-2 because this was whatchamacallit scoring, WTC scoring. And he rocked Tyranids, which is great to see. I've been very worried about them being competitive. This is a Leviathan army with a Tyrant. A lot of people are taking the Tyrant instead of the Flyrant now. They're rocking the Shard Goldet, which I always enjoy saying. Excuse me. Neurothroat, Tyranid Prime, 2 units of 10 Horms, a unit of 3 Warriors, 3 Tyrant Guard, 3 Zone Throw, 6 Raveners, and then a Carnifex, 2 Screamer Killers, 1 Screamer Killer, and then a T-Fex. Excuse me. So basically, they're going more and more MSU. Is what Tyranids are doing from what we've seen. I don't know how that's going to work out. Many years ago at Nova, I played an amazing man from England named Taff Jones, who I just adored playing against. Hey, Taff, if you're listening, man, I really remember our game fondly, even though you did very dirty things to me that I couldn't have avoided in any way. He was playing Raven Guard with a Phobos Captain, a Chaplain, Caven Strike, who I presume is a special character from Raven Guard.
Yeah, he's the chapter master.
Oh, the chapter master. Okay. 3x5 infiltrators, aggressors, Vanguard vets, lightning claws and thunderhammer, slightly different. 10 assault marines for 180 points with chain swords to just do 1,000,000 attacks. 2x3 outriders, 2x2 hammer strikes, 2x3 eliminators. Guys, can you tell which data sheets are good for marines yet? Like many of these things have been in every list we've looked at. Aggressors are undercosted. They're very durable. They get 1,000,000 shots. In White Scars, they can advance and charge and advance and shoot without penalty, which makes me so excited, but no one's playing White Scars so far. The hammer strike's undercosted for its shooting. This is just what's good for Marines. I'm sure Taft played it great. He's a very, very careful player. 4th place is John Beal on the last list I'll cover from this event, even though the 5th list is Eldar, so good job on doing well with Eldar. Oh, this is also Eldar. It was Eldar? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
oh, it was Eldar. My mistake. This is an Ulthway list, which I'm very excited about. And it's got 5 Warlocks starting it off. Then it's got the Avatar. What's happening? Then it's got Eldrad, the original Pip Daddy, Farseer Skyrunner, Karandris, Dire Avengers, Howling Banshee, Striking Scorpion, Shining Spears, MSU, Shroudrunners, a Viper, 5 Warp Spiders, and 3 D-Cannons. This is the list that's been doing well. Very close. I think what Eldar are doing in order to win is they are taking MSU bikes and deep strike things that are so fast that they get to do behind enemy lines and the ranger thing. He doesn't have rangers, but other people are doing the ranger thing. So they're just doing their secondaries without you stopping them while filling the board with crap and killing you just enough to hold you back. This is not going to table you a lot of the time, but it's going to score points really well. The only thing I don't understand about this list is what Mr. Avatar is doing there. In my view, he's just awful in the meta right now for 280 points. I like that he's there. I know that Billy likes that he's there. I'm not saying this person's wrong. I'm sure they know exactly what they're doing. That's just what it is. Because John Beal and Nicholas Christensen Secker are both Eldar, I'm going to look at the next one just to see if we can learn anything. I haven't looked at this list yet. 4 Warlocks. Is this also Ulthway? No, this is Hail of Doom.
Okay.
1 unit of Rangers, some Void Scarred, 2 units of Dire Avengers, 10s, 3 Shining Spears, 3 Shroud Runners, a Viper, 6 Wind Riders with just Shuriken Cannons, 3 D-Cannons, and then Harlequins, 3x5 troops, and a Death Jester. No transports. Fascinating list. I'm actually glad I got to read that. That was great. All right, you got 10 minutes, Billy. Let's roll, man.
This is what I was born for. You know how Colin was saying that Ulthway
ignore the 24-person tournament. That's just silly.
I want to talk a little bit about it. Team Battle Brothers, 40K Major in Carthage, North Carolina. You know how Colin was saying that Eldar, specifically Ulthway, have an interesting build? Well, Matt I can never pronounce his name. Shukman of Art of War.
Matt Shukman, amazing human being.
Yeah, and one of the best Eldar players in the U.S. Also brought Ulthway, very similar to the Ulthway list Colin was talking about. Avatar, Eldrad, Flappy, and a Farseer. 10 Rangers and 5s, 5 and 5 of Dire Avengers, 5 and 5 of Banshees, 3 and 3 of Shrouds, 1 Viper, 3 Falcons. Exactly the game plan Colin was talking about. I kind of agree that I'm not exactly sure what the Avatar is doing in a points factory list like this, but it's fun, and Matt is just a phenomenal player.
The Avatar again. We clearly don't know anything, Billy.
Look, it probably plays the same role that your Terminators play of while you're trying to deal with all this other crap, there's this really durable threat that's just marching up the table and then doing something. I'm just not sure that this Eldar army is playing quite the same game plan. But again, my Avatar sits next to me at work all day because I love him. So
I'll tell you what, right now, I will tell you right now, I'm just going to stream an Eldar list. I'm just going to do this. We'll put it on the table. Maybe I'll play it against Guard. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. I need to hurry. Michael Agner in second place with Guard, 4-0-1. Ponyboy Command Squad Tank Commander. That is your default HQs from everything I saw. He also has a Death Corps Marshal. He has 40 Cadians, 30 Kazarkins, 1/1/1 of Plasma Sentinels, 3 Mortar Units, 3 Leman Russes, and a Chimera. You know how Colin said that demons have all the same army? Get ready to hear something very similar to that about 5 more times in the list that I have to talk about. Mark Hertel took third place with Iron Hands. This army is almost straight out of like 2 years ago. A lieutenant, attack marine, 5 and 5 infiltrators, an ancient, the Volcan that kills everything it sees. I take it back. Here's the interesting thing. He had a unit of 10 scouts and a unit of 5 scouts with 3 land speeder storms to carry them around in. 5 and 5 termies, some axe van vets, a thunderstrike, and then a bunch of multi-melta grav devastators with a drop pod. This will shoot the bejesus out of you and is actually reasonably fast with those storms.
And it's from a known Admech player, if you're wondering how efficient the shooting is.
Yeah. Robin Roberts, who we've talked about quite a bit, 4th place Gene Stealer Cult, Twisted Helix. This had 3 Goliaths, 9 bikes, 3 Ridge Runners, 30 Pure Strains, 10 Metamorphs, 4 Acolyte units, and a bunch of characters. I believe this is almost exactly the same army that Robin took the previous week and I believe won the previous week with. So pay attention to Gene Stealer Cult. And then 5th place Iron Hands, Daniel Paolini. Relatively similar to what Mark took. Like 1 extra squad of Van Vets, 2 Redemptors. Moving on. Wheat City Open 2023 in Brandon, Canada. This one was won, say that 5 times fast, by Logan Antonation, I think is how you pronounce Logan's name. Chaos Demons, Bloodthirster. This is actually an interesting demons list. Starts with the Bloodthirster, not terribly interesting. Changecaster, not terribly interesting. Mammon Transfigured. Do you know who Mammon Transfigured is, Colin?
You know that I don't know who that is.
Can you guess which chaos god Mammon Transfigured is of? 25% chance.
I don't know.
It's a Nurgle. It's like a Nurgle captain with a really good flamer out of the Forge World book.
Okay.
3 units of Nurglings, 10 pinks, 10 and 10 plague bearers.
Is he sloppity? They like their characters to be sloppity.
No, he's got like a reroll 1's aura and then a 3d3 5/2/2 flamer.
Neat.
Yeah. No picture in the app, so I have no idea what the model is supposed to be. Anyway, 10 pinks, 10 and 10 plague bearers, 3/3/3 beasts, and then 2 shooty chaos knights. This is not a list that you've seen anywhere else. It's probably pretty durable. I'm curious to see if any of this has legs. 2nd place, Alexander Buchan, Buchan, Alexander. Guard. Command squad, 2 tank commanders, 40 Cadians, 20 regular guardsmen. What's the difference?
Regular guardsmen suck.
And what
Cadians get free special weapons and auto hitting on 6s to hit and in combat and shooting.
Okay.
Like they're just
a points thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because I saw splits of guard and regular.
Yeah, just take Cadians. There's no reason to get to save the points. Is my advice. This person knows a lot as well. This is just my thought.
Yeah. 1/1/1 of Scout Sense, 2 mortars, 3 Lehman Russes, 2 Chimeras, and then a Tempestus detachment with a command squad and some Scions. A lot of guard guns. 3rd place. Here's a spicy Black Templars list. Grimaldus. Or no, sorry. The spicy Black Templars list is the next one. This is a good Black Templars list. Grimaldus, Helbrecht, Chaplain, Incursors, some Aggressors, some Blade Guards, some Judiciaries, Apothecary, 10 Terminators, 2 units of Van Vets, and 6 Eradicators. That's just sort of like what Black Templar has always been. Now, in 4th place, Kyle Thompson brought Grimaldus, Intercessors, and Cursors, 3 units of Sword Brethren, 1 unit of 8 Terminators, 3 Lancers, 5 Impulsors, and Bobby G. So this is 8 Black Templar tanks with 5-up invulns, with Bobby hanging out with them. This one is cool. I'm glad someone tried the Black Templar parking lot and did well with it. Curtis Strong in 5th place took Death Guard. Morty, Plaguecaster Typhus, 10 Plague Marines, 20 Poxwalkers, 1 Blight, 5-man Blight Lord, 3 Death Shrouds, Tallyman, and Bloat Drone, and a pod. This is Morty
and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yes. I think look at the Wheat City Open 2023. I don't know what they were doing with their lists. They are playing in a very different meta, and I'm curious about it. I think it's cool. We have
Billy,
heroics.
you only have 2 minutes left, and I need to announce something. So, what do you want to
Okay,
be selective?
Heroic Scale Games in Houston. Nathan Bjorg with guard. He brought the guard list, but he brought an Earthshaker and a heavy quad mortar. That's cool. Carmen Batista, guard. This is the guard list. Third place, Connor Myers, guard. Same stuff. Russell Tassin brought Black Legion. He brought Decimators. And then in Northern California, there was a 24-person tournament that was won by Space Wolves with an army that's very close to what I want to play with.
Excellent. That was very good, Billy.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, we really enjoyed doing this. We're going to do a thing that Billy doesn't know about, and he's going to do it. I volunteered him for it. We talked about doing this month in 40K. We're going to do that probably next week. We're going to pick a date and announce it. This month in 40K is going to be an evening show once Billy and I are off work someday, and we're going to talk for a while. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take lists that we talk about all the time, and we're going to talk about them. What do they do? How do they function? What do you do against them? We're going to dive into the things we talk about on the show in a bit more detail. Here's the catch. You're only going to be able to get it on YouTube. You're going to see it live, or you're going to have 24 hours to watch it. Then I'm pulling the stream down and I'm putting it in our members area. This month in 40K is a special treat for our members. I'm going to let 24 hours of you guys all watching it go, then give it to our members. But we're going to do a real deep dive, and it's going to be really, really, really interesting. We will announce the date on the next episode so you guys know when to look for it. Thank you, everyone. We love you all. It's been really fun. He's Billy, and I'm Colin because someone has to be, and we'll be back at you next week. Have a great day and a fantastic week, and enjoy 40K. Bye now.
Bye.